Edward here from the crypto viewing group. Gotta give a plug for my buddies, my pals, the team. Crypto viewing group. The link will be below. Check us out. Man, we keep hammering it out every week after week after week. Very proud. Very proud of the team. Very proud to be part of the team. Man, we just do a lot of stuff. Check it out below. We just did some stuff recently and still getting over it. So check us out. The link will be below. Also, coming to you from the Kuhlman Archive. Just to let you know what the Kuhlman Archive is about. My wife is Arden Kuhlman, the daughter of Roy Kuhlman, who was an artist, graphic designer in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. He did thousands of book jackets for a publisher out of New York called Grove Press, who was putting out all the avant-garde stuff back in the day, all the beat poets, Jack Kerouac, Ginsberg, and William Burroughs, and all those avant-garde writers. He was doing the book jackets for them. We are now producing reproductions of those and lots more stuff. So check it out. I have the link below. We're also going to be doing T-shirts and that kind of just cool stuff. It's just a very cool thing. We love art. I love abstract expressionist art, and he was one of the groundbreakers. So that's the plugs. Now let's get to the meaning of this video. Recently, set up a project with my buddy Dustin Newcomb, who usually he picks the targets for me, typically. As you know, Dustin picks my vacation targets. So when I'm ready to go on a vacation, which I'm in the midst of one now, and in between working and in between all the projects with crypto viewing, I need to take a little vacay. So I'll send an email to Dustin and say, do you got something? And he'll put something together for me. This time, he wanted to do something, and I picked a target for him. Now, because it's very exploratory, this is not describe the target remote viewing. This is acquire the stimulus and allow it to create something, remote viewing. And so, of course, I selected a target. Could have been anything. So Dustin had no idea what the target is. But I chose something a little more for the occasion, and the target that I selected for him to be inspired to get that stimulus and get the inspiration was this point in time and space right here back in 1952. Abstract expressionist artist Willem de Kooning in his art studio creating. And so that's what the target was that I selected for Dustin. And so the tasking was to experience that point in time, as well as the mind space that de Kooning was in, and the ambiance of his art studio. And so what's coming up next here is Dustin and myself discussing the project, Dustin discussing his experience with it, and the piece of art that he created that was stimulated by this stimulus right here, by this range of time right here. Very interesting. It's fascinating. And that's about enough of me gabbing. So here we are, Dustin and I, talking about this project right here. Okay, and we are recording. Edward here from the infamous crypto viewing group, and I am here talking with my buddy, my pal, out of Houston, Texas, fellow Texan, Dustin Newcomb. What's going on, dude?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Hanging in there, dude. Taking it one day at a time, like everybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
So we just finished up a project where you were doing the viewing end of it on this one, and it looks like we got some very interesting results. and we'll go ahead and talk about it. We set this one up several months back, and you worked on it when you were inspired to work on it. And
Yeah, yeah. It's been a while. It was a it was a while back, but yeah.
and so how did you approach? Let's kind of go over, if you can, what the process was like for you, and kind of what you were looking to do, with this target.
Sure. So part of it, well, I guess the main crux of the project or the avenue of exploration is not so much like data mining like we've talked about in the past, but more about ways to interpret perception, right? Ways to interpret. Yeah, there's so much that happens in a remote viewing session, right? You get these concepts that you try and work out, and sometimes some are more complex than others, but there's a lot of different ways to do that, right? And you can do the traditional controlled remote viewing protocols, and go step by step. And I did some of that with this, but I also, I was more interested in just the way that, I'm very right-brained, so the way that I was able to take these perceptions and, and just try and work them out visually, artistically,
Was there
2D space.
something? Was there a point where you were starting to really feel something was happening, and something was formulating to come out?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, it was so the process. I tried a couple of different things with this. I started off doing traditional controlled remote viewing, and then I kind of did more. I guess you could call it a hybrid of like ERV style, right? And that produced some interesting experiences that, it's hard to articulate with this one for me, because they were so rich and artistic, and that was the mindset going into it. So I was kind of throwing out a lot of the other data that was coming in, and just really trying to relish the experience. And so how do I translate that experience into art, right? So bridging, there's an interesting intersection there between art and remote viewing for me. So I'm trying to explore that a little bit.
Yeah, they're definitely next door neighbors. So so then, what was coming through then? Because in the CRV stuff, you had some interesting things coming through. What was the experience you were having there, in the CRV, in the beginning, with the CRV end of it?
That was a lot of that was me wrestling with the concept. So I do remote viewing. I'm still learning. It's a continual process with me. So part of that is me trying to understand how this stuff comes through, right? So a lot of that in the beginning was just kind of wrestling with these concepts that were coming through. And
do you remember what any of them were?
Yeah, I mean, I have to go back. I mean, you gave me this target in 2019, the end of 2019. In the beginning, the first kind of, so when I do a cool down session before I start remote viewing, I usually just draw, right? I usually just sketch, and it's kind of stream of consciousness stuff. And a lot of what I was sketching before I started the target work or the session work actually ended up in the material that was coming through.
Okay. Now you do art already. What did you feel that applying it in this setting felt any different, or I mean, it's kind of a new experience, so it's going to be a little bit different. But artistically, did it feel any different to you compared to anything else you've done?
Yeah, I mean, it was very inspiring, right? And then very challenging.
Now, when you say inspiring, because of was that something like something that was hitting you, um, target related, or was it just that the act of what we were doing?
Both. I would say
Okay.
both, right? I mean, this is a new avenue of exploration for me. So the novelty is engaging, right? And it's
Yeah.
very interesting to me. And then the target itself, that information coming through, the qualities lended itself to inspire me to, like, try and work this out in a painting, try and work this out through art.
Can, can,
Does that make sense?
well, it does, and I want to definitely explore that more if we can. Um, so, just so I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like the inspiration had a different quality to it. Like and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you could confirm or not, did you feel that there was some additional or outside inspiration that you were tapping into? Um, that
Yeah, and I think that kind of came through in the actual painting. There was what I felt was the the target itself had a spark of creative force to it. And
okay?
I don't,
Can
not
you,
knowing the target, I'm
well,
like,
just
might be,
can you describe what you mean? What do you mean by that? Can you remember feeling that way, or experiencing that while you were working the target? Anything you can expand on with that?
um, yeah, I mean, I'd have to go back and look through the sessions, which I've got my notebook here,
Okay.
but yeah, it was just I kept getting these sense, like, so I was kind of remote viewing and or going through the CRB process, and then I'd stop and then I'd like launch into some poetry, like, and I don't ever write poetry, man,
Okay.
like
Okay.
like, but it did have these, like, the target had these qualities that were like, okay, this is compelling me to express, like, it wants to express itself through art, it wants to express itself through, yeah,
And
writing,
you
which
were
I'm
you
not the
were
best.
feeling that. That's what you were experiencing
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And was it
So
like juicing you up, or like, hey man, I'm kind of working with something here, and it's kind of like we're working together, or what, something like that, or what?
yeah, I mean, yeah, something like that. It's hard to articulate, but
Yeah.
yes.
You remember when in 2018, when I was in Houston, and I was crashing at your place, and we were talking all night long, and I was saying, hey, I want to, I just want to start doing some interviews with people, artists, because I want to try to comprehend and get into their creative process.
Yeah, yeah.
And you had recommended some people to me. Well, that's idea hasn't gone away. It's still the main fascination. So so my question, I'm kind of trying to drill a little bit, because it is the what you're talking about is kind of the essence of the creative process,
Mhm.
and so I want to kind of dig that out and get it to tell us what happened, you know. And so anyway, keep going. You're doing the CRV thing. You're feeling an inspiration, even maybe even like an additional inspiration, or that you were kind of working with levels of inspiration that just kind of wanted to come out in different ways? You start doing poetry, which is something you didn't do. What else happened?
Yeah, I mean, it was exploring these concepts of creation through through the art. So yeah, part of it is also, I typically make art for other people. I typically design and build things for museums and for groups, and I mean, that's been my life for over 20 years. So the creating art for myself, that muscle memory is a little atrophied. This was kind of a really awesome project and a step for me to kind of get back into that, and it was inspiring. So a lot of this was also, me trying to explore, like, how does that that creative force come through you, right? And it's very similar to remote viewing for me, because it is like it's information that's there. It's yeah. So you're just trying to mine that information out of your subconscious, and in the same way, you're trying to get art out through. Some people are really good at just throwing shit on a canvas and making art, and for me, there's more of a process to it, and pretty process oriented in my work, and what I do, and the way I kind of orient my life. So
it's got to have some meaning.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like the content has meaning. It's maybe the process itself is meaningful to me.
Yeah, meaningful. You'd have to feel satisfied. You bring up a really great point, because it's what I'm hearing. You're differentiating, like you're saying, you're used to making art for other people, and when you're making art for other people, you're making a different kind of art. But when you're doing it for yourself, it's a whole nother thing. It's like David Bowie said. He said the day he starts singing to the people in the balcony is the day that he's done. He's not an artist anymore.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what I'm hearing you say. So you were making this one for you. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and just exploring the process itself, exploring, kind of relishing in the perceptions and the sensory perceptions, no intent of like, okay, here it is, 7 months later, and I still don't know what the target is. I mean, I'm interested to know, but that was never the point of the project, right? And I think we even talked about like maybe I don't even want to know what the target is. Maybe that's not the point. But
exactly, absolutely. So you got you doing the CRV, you're doing some ERV. It's coming through in that. And then where'd you go from there?
Yeah, I mean, I tried a couple of different practices. I mean, I kind of am all over the place with my practices. So, I even tried just writing the target reference number down on my palm, and then going to sleep and, trying to see what happens in the dream state, that kind of stuff. Just test and adjust, right? So I worked on this, like, as it would come through, as I'd get inspired to do this, or, I'd be thinking about the target number popping in my head, and I'd have some perceptions come through. I'd drill into the process a little bit more, right? So I'd sit down and do a session, or I'd write some friggin' poetry, like
something was coming out.
Yeah, so I've compiled all of these, like interspersed in my notebook here, some session work, and then kind of towards the end, when I felt like, okay, I've beaten this horse, to death, I went back through and I thought about all of the really strong impressions that I had, the ones that there was a kind of a narrative or an arc even in visually or in perception, and kind of tied all those together. So, yeah, and it ended up as a painting.
So
Long
then
story short.
you compiled it into a painting. Was there a point where you were like, okay, these are the elements that are going to be this piece I'm going to make now? Did you
Yeah.
feel like complete with it, or what?
Yeah, and I even, I played around with how do I tie these elements together, right? These disparate perceptions or disparate experiences. How do I tie them together visually? How do I, is there a theme? Is there a way to tie them? I mean, is there even a reason to tie them together? And so I just kind of started on it, and what my original intent with the painting was it actually kind of turned out differently than what I had started.
Great.
It took on a life of its own. So
Yeah.
it may not be anything close related to what the target is, but
right.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So when did you feel? Do you remember when you felt that it was completed?
The session work.
The painting, the piece.
Oh yeah, that was. So I put a clear coat on it a couple weekends ago and called it done.
Okay, so you were like, I'm complete with this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a perfectionist, and so I can sit there and nitpick the shit out of it, nitpick it to death. And so finally I was like, all right, I got to stop.
You want to share a screen and show me the piece? Show me what it turned into.
Yeah. Let's see. I think you may have to enable screen sharing.
Oh, do I need to enable you to have screen share capability?
I think so.
Did that give you the ability or no?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. So, I don't know if you can see that.
Wow.
That's the piece hanging on my wall right now.
Wow, that's amazing. You want to go over this and what's going on here? How did this come to be?
Yeah. I mean, these were all just really interesting elements that kind of stuck with me out of, I think I was upwards to like 20 sessions that I did. These were the ones that or elements of the session work are in here, but they may not be particularly tied to a session. So it was maybe more inspirational in some cases, but yeah. I have no clue what's going on in there. I just painted the shit, man.
This looks like an egg. Is that kind of a symbolic?
That actually, element? So that egg, yeah, was actually part of the cool down session or the pre-session work that I was doing on one of them, and I think it was one that I really had the most. Like before I started the session, I just started sketching kind of stream of consciousness, free draw, and it was just an upside down egg that was kind of glowing and had some stuff happening in the middle.
Wow. Wow, that's really beautiful painting.
So I decided to make that the focal point. I wasn't, in session doing that,
okay.
but it was an inspirational kind of launching point, maybe. I don't know.
Okay. And the stuff that's kind of inside of there, do those things have some meaning, or are they just kind of abstract shapes?
That's me trying to work out conceptually, like work out these sensory experiences,
Yeah. It kind of looks like that with that kind of ring, and then there's something kind of going from one side of it through it and out another side of it. And that, to me, when I look at that, it kind of reminds me of the process you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, so here was like, I don't know if you can see this. So that was like the cool down session, right? That I did, or just the little stupid drawing I did. But there were other elements, that kind of worked themselves in there. Like this is kind of on the lower panel. That element here
Let's unshare, and so we can get the full screen of those images you're showing.
Sure. Okay. So this was just kind of an image that I was sketching beforehand, right? And that kind of worked itself into the painting, the center point. Some of the other kind of imagery that was kind of coming through. So you can see that, just things like this, like, that shape kept coming through different ways, different times. I drew it, 3 or 4 different ways in there. And so I just tried to represent, kind of amalgamate everything and represent.
Okay. That's awesome. Are you ready for the reveal?
Yeah, man. It'll be interesting.
All right. Let me. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Ha!
Okay. Here is
William de Kooning.
William de Kooning. This was an image of William in his studio in 1952. And these are the variables here. The viewer will experience and describe the person, de Kooning, in the moment that was taken here. Viewers to describe the creative mind space de Kooning is experiencing in his studio at the time here. Viewer will also describe the art studio as it was at the time of the photograph, including the ambiance, which was really the most important thing, was the ambiance in the room created by the artist. And viewer will explore any additional creative inspirations emanating from de Kooning and the studio at the time the photo was taken.
Wild. That is really cool.
Yeah. So, my intent was exactly what you're describing, that you experienced, that kind of tapping into that creative reservoir.
Yeah, that is really cool. And now that some of the perceptions now make sense. Interesting. It's funny. I put in the painting, I put a big yod, Hebrew letter yod, in the top, and that is like the creative force, right? That's the spark of creativity, spark of life. Awesome. So that's really cool. Yeah, I love de Kooning. That's funny.
Oh, that's great.
I wonder.
I'm glad. I'm going to email you this. I'll email you these.
And I'll be interested to do some research on what he was painting.
You'll probably find some similarities maybe into what you were drawing, or when you were putting your drawings down. Even like I'm thinking of your sketch, and well, this may be a depiction of a female here with breasts, but who knows what he's doing there. But it kind of reminds me of the egg. Yeah.
Well, has that quality to it. Yeah, that's really cool.
Wow, man. Awesome, dude.
Well, that was fun.
Great job, man. And wow, that piece of art is amazing, dude. That's really something.
It's okay. I'm not in love with it, but it was fun. So
looks like something came through to me, man. Yeah. Something came through.
Yeah, and it's definitely inspired me to explore remote viewing and art, just expressing it differently, right? Expressing all of that And all of that stuff that comes through with remote viewing, it's so interesting. And
Yeah. Well, you know what, like de Kooning and those guys, I'm a big fan of those guys too, you know, and um, Klein and what's the other guy's name? Geez, I'm forgetting their names now. Paul Jackson Pollock,
mm-hmm.
and those guys. And the reason why I picked this target was because I was reading about Jackson and Willem and those guys, and they were really into like psychotherapy, and they were into the mind, and they went into the abstract part of it because they wanted to basically express what was happening in the unconscious.
Yeah, I mean that's a perfect metaphor. That's a perfect tie-in.
Yeah, just like vomit it out, you know, you know, just like pure raw creative energy, you know.
Yeah, and those impulses to create, you know, I think there is, for me, there are these crossovers with remote viewing and all of the varied, you know, spectrum of experience you can have doing that, right? And the same with art, you know, they're, at least in my experience, it's very similar, right? There's a million ways to produce art or to have that stuff come through you. So yeah, trying to tie those two together, or just explore this for a little bit, you know, and maybe it turns into something else. You know, I don't really have an end goal, but yeah, it's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite painters is Hilma af Klint, and she did a lot. She was a lot earlier, but she did a lot of the same stuff where it was just trying to express these unconscious impulses.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in my opinion, I mean, it's, you know, allegorically, but the remote viewing faculties and the artistic creative faculties are in the same, you know, they're in the same apartment complex. They live right next to each other. You can't really have one without the other.
Yeah, it lends itself, remote viewing lends itself to have some of those qualities, those artistic qualities. Yeah.
Yeah, and like on the creative end of it, it gives more kind of freedom and control of well, control in the sense that, you know, you're kind of dealing with an uncontrollable force, but it gives you more freedom, I guess. Really, it gives you more freedom than trying to do some describe the target level remote viewing, and that is the experience. You know, that's what's important. You know, to me, that's the most important thing.
For sure.
Is to have the experience, not describe the target. You know, and so it was really interesting to be able to witness and participate in you going through this process. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating to watch.
Well, I'm ready to do another one when you are.
Yeah, man, absolutely, awesome. Absolutely. All right, man. Any final words before we unrecord?
No, man. I think this was really fun. It was exciting. Yeah, I had a great time doing this.
Awesome.
I appreciate you doing it.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much. And we're signing out now. Many more to come. Thanks for watching.
See ya.